Hi, sixth graders. This is Mrs. Gall. Today we're going to talk about two-step equations and inequalities. Get your notebook open and press play when you're ready to continue. What number could the variable be to make the equation true? Let's look at the top one first. What could you replace x with in order to make this equation true? Well, I know 3 times, let's guess maybe 7. Let's try that in there. We're just going to do a little guess and check here. 3 times 7 plus 9 and see if that works. 3 times 7 is 21. 21 plus 9 is not 33, that's 30. So let's guess and check another number. Let's try 8. 3 times 8 is 24. Is 24 plus 9 33? Yes, because 24 plus 10 would be 34, and 1 less than that would give us 33. So that means 8 would be our answer for x in that problem. What about my second problem? 4y minus 5 equals 19. What number might you guess to work for y? Well, I know I need to be a little bit over 20 because I'm going to be subtracting 5 to get to 19. 4 times 5 is 20. Let's try 4 times 6. 4 times 6 is 24. Is 24 minus 5 19? It is. Are there any patterns or rules you could have come up with to help you get to those answers for x? And our bottom example, or y I should say, our bottom example, y was equal to 6, and our top example, x was equal to 8. Any patterns or rules you could have discovered to help us get to those numbers? We're actually going to be using what we call inverse operations to solve. We're going to start as far away from the variable as possible and then work our way towards the variable to get our answer for our variable. Let's look at an example of that. It's very important to show your work when solving equations and inequalities because as you move forward in math, your equations and inequalities are just going to get more complex. So you really want to be comfortable with showing your work on problems like this so that as you move forward, you're familiar with that process. Here's what we mean by start as far away from the variable as possible. First thing I'm going to do is draw a line. Whatever happens on one side of that line also has to happen on the other side of the line. Go to the side that holds your variable. Over here we have 6x plus 1. Start with the piece that's farthest away from the variable but on the same side. That would be our plus 1. We're going to use what we call inverse operations. That means the opposite of the operation we see, we're going to use that to get rid of this number, and we're going to do that to both sides. So right now I see plus 1. What's the opposite of adding 1? Subtracting 1. So we're going to subtract 1 to both sides of this equal sign. That gets rid of my 1's because 1 minus 1 is 0. And all that I'm left with over there on the left is 6x. On the right, I have 25 minus 1, which gives us 24. Now, how do we get x? Well, we have one more step to take. 6 times x equals 24. What's the opposite of timesing something by x? By 6. Dividing something by 6. So we're going to divide both sides by 6 to figure out what x equals. 6 divided by 6 gives us 1x, which is the same thing as x. 24 divided by 6 gives us our answer, 4. That means if I went back into this equation and replaced x with a 4, it would be true. Let's try that. You can always check your work on equations by plugging in the answer you got to see if it makes sense. So we're going to take out the x and put a 4 in there, and then we're going to solve to see if this stays true. 6 times 4 is 24. Is 24 plus 1 25? It is. So since both sides equal one another, 25 does equal 25. That means my value for x was correct. Let's try an inequality. P over 5, or P divided by 5 minus 8 is less than 2. Just like with an equation, we're going to use the same process for solving. I'm going to draw a line down from my inequality symbol. Whatever happens on one side of the line must happen on the other side. Let's start on the side that has the variable, but with the piece that's furthest away from the variable. That would be our -8. To get rid of -8, we're going to use the inverse operation of subtraction, which would be addition. And we want to add 8 to both sides. That cancels out my 8's over here on the left, and I'm left with p over 5 is less than 10. P divided by 5 is on the left. We need to get p by itself. The opposite of dividing by 5 would be timesing by 5. So we're going to times by 5 on both sides of the symbol. That cancels out my 5, so I'm left with just the variable on the left. We are left with p is less than 10 times 5, which is 50. What does that answer mean? It means I could plug in any value that's less than 50 for p, and this inequality would stay true. This is not an equation, it's an inequality. So there's not just one answer for an inequality, there's infinite solutions. So any number less than 50 could work if we plugged it in for p. Let's try some practice. Let's try this one. 2c minus 7 is greater than or equal to 17. What step do you think we should do first? I like to draw that line like I said, and then it looks like we're adding 7 first because we're starting on the same side as the variable with that piece that's furthest away. So if I add 7 to both sides, I end up with 2c is greater than or equal to 24. Now how do we get c by itself? Right now I have 2 times c. The inverse of multiplying would be dividing by 2. That gives us c is greater than or equal to 12. What does that mean? It means we could plug in any value that's greater than or equal to 12 for c, and this inequality would stay true. We can test our inequality solutions by plugging in a value that would work for c to see if it works here. So let's try that. What's a number that's greater than or equal to 12? Maybe you said 12, because that's equal to 12 and we have the or equal to sign. Let's try it. I'm replacing my c with a 12. 2 times 12 is 24. 24 minus 17 is 17. Is 17 greater than or equal to 17? Yes, it fits the or equal to part, so that means our solution worked. You try this one on your own. If you want to press pause, you may, and then press play when you want to see the answer. If you still don't feel ready for that, you can just leave the video rolling while I talk through the work. Personally, when fractions are set up like this, I like to stack them, so I'm going to replace n/3 as n over 3. Start by drawing that line from your equal sign. You're starting on the same side that has the variable, but with the piece that's furthest away from your variable. That's your 6. Right now, my 6 does not have a symbol in front, which means it's a positive, so to get rid of it, we're going to use the opposite symbol, which is to subtract it or use a negative. That gets rid of my 6's over here. We're left with n over 3 equals 2. We need to get n by itself. Right now we have n divided by 3 equals 2. The opposite of dividing by 3 is timesing by 3. That cancels out our 3's over here. We're left with n equals 2 times 3, which is 6. That means if I went in here and plugged in a 6, this equation would be true. 6 divided by 3 is 2. 2 plus 6 equals 8. Try this one on your own. Press play when you're ready to see the answer. Start by drawing my line down the middle. We start on the side that has the variable with the piece that's furthest away on that same side. Right now I see plus 8, so I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. That leaves me with 2m equals 24. 2m means 2 times m. The opposite of timesing by 2 is dividing by 2. I get m equals 12. That means if I go back in and plug in a 12, 2 times 12 is 24, and 24 plus 8 equals 32. Looking for an inequality, but it looks like they're all equations. Let's try this last one. W over 4 plus 6 equals 9. The great thing about equations and inequalities is the solving is very similar. So you're going to solve the same way, your answers just mean slightly different things. Pause the video if you want to try this one on your own. Press play when you're ready to see the answer. We subtract 6 from both sides. We're left with w divided by 4 equals 3. The opposite of dividing by 4 is timesing by 4. That means w equals 12. If I go back in and place a 12 where the 4 or where the w was, 12 divided by 4 is 3, and 3 plus 9 equals 6. All right, you guys, that's all I have for you today with two-step equations and inequalities. Check in with your teacher if you have any questions.